Hello, you are probably here with us today because you're wondering if there's anything you could actually do to affect whether you have a boy or a girl for your next pregnancy.
And truth be told, there are a lot of myths about this topic.
Yes, so many things, but there actually is something you could do that is scientifically proven to give you the option to try to do something that's going to affect whether you have a boy or a girl.
Yes, so if this is your first time meeting us, I'm Sarah. I'm a board-certified OBGYN and a fertility specialist.
Yep, I'm Kurt. I'm a board-certified pediatrician.
And we are the Doctors Bjorkman.
Welcome back. I just want to start out by apologizing for my raspy voice. We have this wonderful little germ monster who goes to preschool with other little germ monsters and then brings it home to share with mom and dad, it seems like, just about every week.
Yes, so many of you may have always dreamed of having a little boy or a little girl. And so you are wondering, is there anything you can do to increase the chances of having one or the other? There are lots of thoughts or myths out there on this topic about increasing your chances of one or the other.
Yeah, and these are all sorts of things like, do certain positions matter, or having sex at certain times of the month, or even things like sperm sorting and all sorts of other things that we're going to dive into today, including something that you could actually do that there's evidence makes a difference.
Indeed. So let's go back to the very beginning, because actually, the sex of the baby is determined the moment the egg meets the sperm.
Yep, and it's the sperm that actually is the thing responsible for determining the sex, male or female, of that embryo and then developing baby.
Indeed. So this is because females have two X chromosomes. They are XX. And males have one X chromosome and one Y chromosome, or XY. So when women make eggs, all of them carry an X chromosome, X or X. When men make sperm, those sperm either carry an X chromosome or a Y chromosome. And men make those sperm 50-50. 50% carry an X, 50% carry a Y.
Yeah, so then when one egg meets one sperm, the egg automatically is just going to have one X chromosome, and then it's all up to that sperm to carry the other chromosome, either an X to make a female embryo, XX, or a Y to make a male embryo, XY.
Yes, so this idea leads us to some of the myths about increasing your chances of getting one sex or the other, and it all comes back to the sperm.
Now, a lot of these myths and thoughts about your ability to control having a boy or a girl is around the thought that there's actually a smaller amount of DNA in a Y chromosome. And so a sperm carrying a Y chromosome could potentially move faster, but might not live as long as a sperm carrying an X chromosome.
So myth number one is that if you have sex closer to ovulation, you're more likely to get a male, because the sperm carrying a Y chromosome would be the first one to get to that egg.
Yeah, but there is no data to support that these chromosomes are faster or more likely to give you a boy if you have sex closer to the time of ovulation, correct?
Correct.
Now, the flip side of myth number one brings us to myth number two, in that the thought that having sex earlier, 2 to 4 days before ovulation, gives those sperm-carrying X chromosomes more time to get to the egg, increasing your chances of having a female. But again, there is no data to support any of this, but we do appreciate all of the creative thinking that went into this theory.
Yes, absolutely. Though all of this does make me a little nervous as a fertility doctor, because I worry that if people are trying for a boy, they may be trying to wait till the very last second, and they aren't having sex kind of every couple days during that fertile window. Because again, they're trying to wait till the very last second because they want a boy. And what we do know is that studies have shown pregnancy rates are highest if you are having sex kind of every other day during your fertile window, or those 5 to 6 days before ovulation. So if you are trying to conceive, check out our Trying to Get Pregnant Fast video with all sorts of more detailed tips for you.
Myth number 3 is that certain sex positions can increase your chances of having a boy or a girl.
Right.
Now, there's a thought that missionary position is more associated with having a girl. And the idea here is that with missionary position, it may take longer for the sperm to reach the egg, which then gives those slower egg-carrying sperm time to get to the egg. And also that any position that has the sperm closer to the cervix might make you more likely to have a boy.
Again, absolutely no data to suggest any position makes you more likely to have a boy or girl. And in fact, there actually was a study done that kind of debunks both of these myths. So this study looked at couples who underwent IUI, or intrauterine insemination. With IUI, sperm is placed inside the uterus right at the time of ovulation. So if that theory were correct, all babies born after IUI should be male, because you are putting sperm closer to the egg than is even possible with any position, and you are putting it there right at the time of ovulation.
Yeah, and shockingly, the results of this study showed that half the babies were male and half the babies were female.
Correct. So again, this is just showing that neither timing nor position really increases your chances of having a male or a female.
Yeah. Myth number 4, you can use something called sperm sorting to affect your chances of having either a boy or a girl. But maybe you're wondering, what is sperm sorting anyway?
So this again goes back to the idea that the Y chromosome may have less DNA than the X chromosome. So the idea is you can use a centrifuge to sort the sperm based on density, or you can use dye, thinking that there would be less uptake of dye in a Y sperm because it has less DNA. Studies have shown that the accuracy on this ends up being about 50-50.
That's almost perfect.
Yeah. So that is, of course, what you get at baseline. So this is not a really useful tool.
Yeah. Now, when you see any of these different methods online or different programs you can do or people who swear by a certain method, know that they are all guaranteed to work about half the time or 50% of the time, much like just random selection in nature would do.
This is very true.
Is there anything that actually does work and gives people a chance to have some control over having a boy or a girl?
Yes. There is one way that you can do this to tell what your embryo is prior to implantation. And that is by doing IVF, creating embryos, and then doing pre-implantation genetic testing.
Yeah, that's PGT, right? What is that?
Yes. So pre-implantation genetic testing. So when you do IVF or in vitro fertilization, check out our many videos about that process and our journey there. But during IVF, you stimulate the ovaries to make as many eggs as you safely can. You then retrieve those eggs with a surgical procedure, and then you mix those eggs with sperm in the lab to create embryos. Those little embryos are grown out or cultured for 5 or 6 days in the lab, and once they reach the blastocyst stage, which is day 5 to 6 of human embryo development, those embryos are able to be biopsied. So a few cells are taken from the outer layer of the blastocyst. That is called the trophectoderm. It is the part that becomes the placenta. So this biopsy is sent off to a genetics lab for testing, and then they give you results of the chromosome makeup of those embryos, including are they XX or XY, if you want to know that information. This testing is 97 to 98% accurate, so you have a very good idea if your embryos are chromosomally normal, as well as the sex of those embryos.
We've been asked a lot since we did IVF if we knew the sex of the embryo we put back, and as it turns out, we actually didn't.
No, we did not. We ended up doing a day 5 fresh embryo transfer, meaning I did my retrieval, and then 5 days later, we transferred an embryo, a day 5 embryo back.
Without ever freezing it, right?
Without freezing it, nope. And so when you do the biopsies for pre-implantation genetic testing. That happens usually either on day 5 or 6. Then the embryos are frozen while those biopsies are sent off to the lab. And there's a 1 to 2 week kind of turnaround time to get those genetic testing results back. So we put back an untested day 5 embryo and got a boy.
Yeah.
So,
it's fun. Like we said, hey, we'd be happy with a healthy baby.
Right.
Kind of want to be surprised. And so here we are.
Yeah.
We've got a girl and a boy on the way.
yeah.
This whole sex selection
Right.
with IVF, like definitely there are many people that have feelings or thoughts about, is this okay?
Right.
How does the American Society for Reproductive Medicine feel about using IVF solely for sex selection?
Right. So sex selection, sometimes called family balancing, is one reason why families might want to do IVF. However, IVF is a time-intensive, physically involved, and expensive process that is not without risks. Check out our IVF complications video. We lived through it. It was not a fun time. But anyway, so because of this, the non-medical use of IVF with pre-implantation genetic testing just for sex selection is an ethically controversial practice.
Yep, and as you can imagine, there are arguments for and against this. Some of the main arguments for using IVF for sex selection center around patient autonomy and things like reproductive liberty.
Right.
You could also imagine that arguments kind of against doing this kind of factor in the risks and burdens to the patient, and if a physician should allow a patient to undergo those just for the purpose of choosing the sex of their baby, or things like gender bias, sex stereotyping, or is it possible that someone is actually being coerced into having a baby of a certain gender and being put through IVF to do that?
Right. So ultimately, ASRM, the kind of governing body for reproductive medicine and IVF practices, ASRM recommends that practitioners take really a lot of time to make sure that patients are fully informed about the risks and burdens of doing the pre-implantation genetic testing, and to make sure, again, they are not being pressured by a partner or someone to have another child of a certain sex. So because, again, there are feelings about this and it is ethically controversial, clinics are encouraged to have a written policy to talk about when sex selection is and under what circumstances this non-medical sex selection is available and allowed in their clinic.
In other words, some clinics offer it and some clinics do not. If this is something you're interested in, ask about it ahead of time. And also, if you don't want to know the sex of your baby, you don't have to, and there are ways to just be surprised, and it can be just as much of a surprise as if you had a baby the natural way.
Old-fashioned way, totally. They can still do pre-implantation genetic testing, let you know that that embryo has the correct number of chromosomes, and just not disclose that it is XX or XY. So that is also totally an option. So, those are the myths debunked about ways to increase your chances of having a male or a female.
They are all 50% effective. It's great. It's like nature.
There is only one way to really be able to pick one way or the other. We hope that you enjoyed our little myth-busting session, and we hope you're all subscribed and look forward to seeing you next week.
Hi, guys.
We're doctors.
But not your doctors.
Anything we've said in this video is for education or entertainment purposes only.
It is not medical advice.
Any specific medical questions you have should be directed to your provider.